how to build a more grit mindset. And I think going into the water is a good example of grit. I mean, it's not for the timid. You have to get uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But you also, there are some tools and techniques that can help you get through those difficult moments, whether it's ice water or a new boss, a new job, a new relationship, your children, your coworkers, whatever that might be.
Thank you for tuning into Time for You Evolve for female entrepreneurs. Remember, you have what it takes to achieve greatness. Your time is now. You're here with me. You're ready to change lives and you're ready to change the world. Isn't it time to skip over the confusion and start creating sustainable and consistent results? We're going to pull back the curtain and start giving meaning to life in this podcast. Time for You Evolved. Hey, my name is Lisa Carmichael, and I am obsessed with everything online. It's no secret in this crowded and highly competitive business world, we need to stand out. It's even more important at a deeper level to stand up for ourselves. I'm a farm girl who grew up shy with zero confidence. If someone had suggested that I would eventually start a podcast, I never would have believed it. As a farm kid, I had the unique opportunity to embrace a holistic approach to life. All the seasons of growth were lessons that have helped me and other female entrepreneurs find success when they've been stuck and struggling. The Time for You Evolved podcast is here to help you navigate business online so you can be laser focused and help you navigate the messy and the magical in every season of your business. Pull up a seat to hear the tried and true secrets that other female entrepreneurs like you are facing and get ready for real talk while you learn. This is the Time for You Evolved podcast. They're entrepreneurs ready to work smarter, not harder. Let's talk video marketing. It's the savvy way to attract, retain, and convert faster than any other strategy out there. Who can blame you? Creating videos can be frustrating, time consuming, and downright intimidating. That's where Big View comes in. It's the solution for your frustration. With Big View, you can create professional videos with ease thanks to its teleprompter app. I've been using Big View for years. Big View is an app that has saved me a lot of time and hassle. The app makes it easy to create professional looking videos. It's an online teleprompter that allows the presenter to keep eye contact with the camera while reading the text they need to speak. Big View allows you to focus on your performance and delivery so your confidence shines through. Whether you're a marketer, blogger, trainer, or business owner, Big View is designed with you in mind. If you're ready to take your video marketing game to the next level, click on the Big View link on my website, lisarcarmichael.com/bigview. Join me and be the best presenter you can be and learn how to make great presentations. Typically, Steve, on my podcast, what do is I get the bio from someone and I kind of rewrite it.
Sure.
And your bio is really beautiful. What you wrote, are you a writer? Do you also?
No, that would be helpful in my career had I been a better writer.
A little bit different today on the podcast. I want to introduce Steve Jewell. And I want to just read his bio because I was just really impressed with his bio, and mostly because Steve and I know each other in a way that you wouldn't expect. Maybe you would because of what I'm wearing today. I'm wearing my dry robe and my cap because Steve and I are both cold water dippers. I just want to share Steve's bio. Over 30 years of progressive recruiting and human resources experience, Steve has seen it all. Yes, even the candidate who brought their pet bird or parents to their interview. From commission to executive and technical recruitment, he has navigated the evolution of talent acquisition and tackled the ever shifting challenges of this people driven profession. Steve has had the privilege and bureaucratic challenges of working with Fortune 500 corporations like US Bank, Wells Fargo, Medtronic, GE Capital, and American Express Financial Services. His leadership and management experience with Fortune 100 companies, including Unisys, PepsiCo, Frito-Lay, the Disney stores, and Macy's, Dayton Hudson Corp, taught him that success often lies in balancing big goals with even bigger patience. Over his career, he has placed more than 1,000 people in roles across Minnesota and the country, proving that even if I can't always find my car keys, I can definitely find the right talent. Outside of the paycheck, Steve has spent 15 years attending, volunteering, and documenting events at the Cedar Cultural Center, nurturing his passion for world music, creativity, and connection, and occasionally indulging in an adult beverage or two from the concession stand. He joined their board in 2023. This love of exploration fuels his ability to spot trends and engage meaningfully with others, both personally and professionally. As a continuous learner at her heart, Steve believes standing still is going backward. I love that. He thrives on creating impactful opportunities, driving results, and building relationships, preferably with people who can laugh along the way. After all, life is too short for boring conversations and bad coffee. Oh, and he likes to dip in Lake Harriet every day in 34-degree water. He has been doing this since 2020 and is well over 600 visits of 10 minutes at a time. Steve, you're an amazing person. I wanted to read that because there's so much that you have done in your lifetime. And I want you to have the credit. I want listeners to realize that this guy has been around the block
Hmm.
and you
Well,
took a
Lisa,
bird.
I feel like I should have some footnotes on that write-up because there are
I know.
there are conditions under some of those things. Yes, I have
Um,
worked for a lot of companies. In fact, in the land of 10,000 lakes, I probably have worked at 10,000 companies. It sounds like a laundry list of organizations. Ironically, I have lived most of my life here in Minnesota. I did spend my graduate program was in Michigan State at East Lansing, and I lived some time in Detroit working for then called Burroughs, now Unisys. Spent some time in Dallas, Texas, working for the Frito-Lay organization, part of Pepsi. And then I bounced out to California for a very brief time working for the Disney stores. So I've lived in really only 3 states other than Minnesota. I've got back here from Disney in about 92 and have stayed. So the last 42 years, really 32 years, I've been anchored here in Minneapolis. So I know a
mm,
lot of people in the Twin Cities by that 32-year tenure. And there's the joke about Kevin Bacon being 6 degrees of separation. I think it's really 1 to 2 degrees now. You talk to enough people, you're going to know someone who knows Lisa or who knows Steve. It just works that way.
it does. It does. So, my podcast, Time for You Evolved, is really for female entrepreneurs. So, you might be wondering, why am I bringing Steve Jewell into the conversation today? And it's because both Steve and I have this passion for cold water dipping. And I went this morning. I'm a morning dipper. Steve is an afternoon dipper. And,
Sunsets. I'm a sunset dipper.
uh-huh. And it really is funny because we know each other because of a WhatsApp. We chat back and forth. People are going to Lake Harriet. Some go in the morning, some go in the afternoon. But we all have this common bond of enjoying cold water dipping. And for us here in Minnesota, I really believe there are three parts to it with cold water. Not only the cold water, but the nature, just being at Lake Harriet, outside it at the lake. And then the third piece is the community. And the three together work so well together and has made the experience so I just love it. So with that, since I have such a passion for it, I wanted to bring Steve on because he has kind of dug a lot deeper into what dipping is all about. So let's jump back a little bit, Steve. So tell
Yeah.
me, if you wouldn't mind, when was your first dip and why did you take that first dip in Lake Harriet? Because you are the beginning. You were one of the
Please
first
call me the
people.
OG. You must call
You
me the
are,
OG.
yes. I love being an OG. Yeah.
You can't be self-proclaimed. Other people have to call you that. Well, and I appreciate this chance to not only talk about dipping, but I do have some opinions and thoughts about entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and women in business. So I'm happy to kind of see where some of these connections can be made, and I have some context to share that might be relevant for your audience as well. But
Nice.
my dipping story, and when I talk to candidates as well as just people, I ask their origin story. How did you get involved with something? What was your first experience? And people love to talk about themselves, and it's a great way to get them to open up. And so my origin story from Lake Harriet, I live in South Minneapolis, about a mile south of Lake Harriet, and a next door neighbor who I'd gotten to know recently, her name is Jan Wolf. I was living with a gentleman named Don Damon, and they had invited me over on Thanksgiving night for a glass of wine and a fire pit. This had been fall of 2020. And of course, pandemic had already been in full swing. And so 6 feet apart and a bonfire and a glass of wine. But they were sharing stories about how over the last couple of weeks, they had been going into the south side of Lake Harriet, walking in and sitting down for 2 minutes. And I asked, well, why would you do that? I said, well, we met this guy. Jan was sharing that she was out kayaking on a paddleboard in a late October day. It was snowing. It was beautiful. And she saw this man walk into the south side as she was getting off her paddleboard, and he sat down. And so she was really curious, why would this person do this? So being Jan, a curious person, she asked him, well, what are you doing? And he said, well, I just had surgery, and my doctor suggested that it'd be great for inflammation for me to go into cold water, and also it would help my mental attitude coming off a pretty serious surgery. So that just fascinated her. And he also mentioned, oh, by the way, there's this guy named Wim Hof who's written a book, he has a podcast, and he's on YouTube, WIMHOF, and he's been inspirational for this gentleman. So, of course, Jan and Don went back and looked up who Wim Hof is, and one thing led to another. They were telling me they've been dipping, and they plan to go the day after Thanksgiving on Black Friday. And of course, I'm like, I'm in. Sounds like a bad idea. I'm all in. So I literally knock at their door at 7 a.m. on Black Friday in a robe with swimsuit and towel in hand, and it's 7 a.m. and we've been up the night before. They're like, who's knocking at our door on things, Black Friday? And it's me. And so we all climbed into Don's car and we drove over to the South Beach, and my spouse joined us and she videotaped it. So I actually have evidence of that first walk-in dip in the south side of Lake Harriet in 2020. And that got it going. And from that, Jan posted out on, I think it was Facebook, that we're dipping, or I think it was on Nextdoor. If anybody would be interested, we're meeting at the North Beach now because it's freezing on the South Beach, and that's how it evolved. And then, of course, as you know, we created WhatsApp, and last year, I believe over 1,500 people, unique individuals, dipped in Lake Harriet through our Harriet Magic Hole. So from the origins of 2 or 3 people, now there have always been people that dip, and there are people that have been walking into cold lakes. Cedar Lake has had an ice hole since 2011, but for Lake Harriet, this was kind of the beginning of our origin story.
I mean, I live probably about 20 minutes away from Lake Harriet, and I love going there. It's just, again, it's that community piece of it and just being in the cold. Thanks for acknowledging the fact that this is a audience of female entrepreneurs, because what I've noticed about you, Steve, is that you're a really good storyteller and you have a way of pulling people in. Is that just something that you've always been natural at, or was that a learned?
I think it's part of my personality, but I would also give a nod to my profession, because as a recruiter, part of the storytelling is, why should you, Lisa, come work for XYZ company? I don't know you, so how can I learn more about your background, where you've worked, what your passions are? So then I can tell the story of Cargill, or why you should go work for whatever company that I'm prospecting for. So storytelling is a great skill for everybody. I think it helps both entrepreneurs as well as professionals to communicate and get a message clear. So I think if we could do anything for high school kids, is teach them the power of storytelling, because they're going to use that skill throughout their life.
I love it. Well, let's continue on with our story of cold water dipping.
Yeah.
So how often are you going?
Well, as you mentioned, I go in every day. I usually start right around the Halloween window. I've actually enrolled my family into doing this now. We get together at Cragen's up in near Breezy Point. Actually, it's called Pelican Lake on Breezy Point. And we have a family gathering. We've been doing this for 25 years. But last year, I invited half of them, a dozen of them to join me. As you would imagine, most said no, thank you. I'm not interested in climbing into a cold lake in late October. But 10 people did. And then this year we had 20 people. So I think we've started a new family tradition when we get together in at Pelican Lake to do a cold water dip as a family. So uh, that's kind of my
Oh,
starting window. But then have started doing a Halloween get together in the North Beach with family and friends. So anyone from the past dipping community can bring their son, their daughter, their grandkids, and we dress up. And so this year we had probably 40 people in costume, and brought ice cubes, the big cocktail ice cubes, so everyone could grab an ice cube and set their intention before the new dipping year and throw their ice cube in the water. And of course, it gets the lake just a little bit colder, a little bit faster.
yeah,
And so
I
that's
love
my
that.
that's my kickoff. So I'm on dip number 86 for the year, or sorry, 96. I'll be hitting 100 next week for this season, and I typically
Woohoo!
shoot for 140 to 150 dips per season, starting from October to April. By the time you get to May, I feel like I'm just standing in a lake because the water's now 50
Right.
degrees. There's no ice on the water, so it loses some of its draw for me once it turns into 60-degree weather. And even though the water temperature at 50 still has health benefits, I'm much more interested in biking and jogging and walking my dog and doing other things rather than staying in a lake,
Oh, sure.
in an
Oh,
open lake.
sure.
But I love to dip every day. Am I obsessive about it? No, but I'm pretty rigorous about it. So there are some days I'll have to miss. I missed Christmas Day. We were traveling. I went out of town, went to Charleston, North Carolina, so I missed a few days dipping there. But in general, I like to go every day. And to your point, I mean, I go for 10 minutes at a time. The health benefits are probably much less than that. You don't need to spend 10 minutes. There's not a contest here. But people do get the benefits at as few as 3 to 4 minutes of cold water submersion. Anything
Hmm.
after that is just I do it because I made the effort to get there. I might as well spend 10 minutes in the lake.
I love it. I love it. So I love that you're not recruiting people, but inviting people to join you. And what I've noticed is that as I talk to different people about this, it really is about mindset. Initially, they're like, why? They have that puzzled look on their face.
Like, what's
And
wrong with
then,
you?
yeah, yes. And then eventually, the more conversations you have with it, they're all of a sudden they're joining you as well. And part of the experience of cold water dipping is mindset. So I would kind of like to hear, like, have you created like little rituals when when you go to Lake Harriet to do your dipping? And does it start in the morning when you send out that text message like I'm going at 3:30 today? What kind of mindset has been created because of the cold water dipping for you?
Well, you bring up really, I think, fundamental behavior change markers. So one of the behavior change markers is you go public with it. You tell people what you're doing. So if you want to lose weight, you want to get an exercise program, you want to learn Spanish, you don't just tell yourself, you tell others so people can support you. They can be your accountability buddy. They can check in with you. So any behavior change, whether it's minor or major, comes with declaration. So I think there's power in declaration, and that's true for starting a business or starting. I'm starting a new thing next week. It's called Argent Alpha, and it's a for men over 50. It's a workout program for people, men only. Sorry, gals, no women allowed. Men over 50. So it's very targeted to a unique audience, and the whole point is to make it harder to kill, harder to die from heart disease and body fat and lack of exercise and cardiovascular problems. So that to me is I'm declaring this to people. I'm taking this workshop. It's not even a workshop. It's a year-long program. I've invested in me to make this happen. So I think part of it, anything, is declaration. The other part is making notations of it. So I log my visitation and the number and year to date, as well as how many I've done altogether. That's how I know today is number 96 and I'm on 604. Because every day in my Google Calendar, I mark it down. And if I miss it, then I take it off. So I don't cheat. I don't give myself credit if I don't go. And I do put it on WhatsApp to let people know I'm going to be there at a certain time. But that's also to give people a chance to join me if they're free and interested. Dipping has much, in my opinion, there's great value in solitude and meditation, which can happen in the ice. I think there's also value in community, to your point, and that is having someone join you and have that shared experience because it's cold. I mean, you're climbing into 34-degree water. Um, that's not what everybody does every day. So to acknowledge that we're putting our bodies through a little bit of a discomfort, and I want to talk about the value of being uncomfortable, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and where that plays in other avenues of your life. So there's value in that alone. So community, to your point, accountability, go public with it, safety, let people know you're going. So if you don't hear back from Steve in 3 hours, maybe someone should go look. I do let my wife know every day that I leave, so she knows I'm going to be gone for the next 45 minutes or so. So those are the ways that I kind of put rigor to this. I try not to over post pictures on Facebook because, frankly, no one really cares that much about our goofy community, but I do make sure that people know they can join us in special events, whether it's summer, winter solstice or birthday parties. We recently had one of our original members get married at the ice hole. So they had a wedding ceremony. Nick Garbus got married last Saturday. So I think this ice hole will be used over time to have weddings. Maybe there'll be a birth in there. I don't know. It's possible. But the ice hole will be a ceremonial place for all kinds of things.
And then, okay, so today when I went dipping, it was 30 degrees warmer than it was yesterday. It was below zero, and today it was
Mhm.
30 degrees. So, is there a mindset shift when it comes to the weather?
Oh, absolutely. And there's also precautions for safety. As you know,
Right.
wind chill can bring the temperature below zero. And it's not that the water is colder, it's still 34 degrees, right? That's the consistent. People, walker bys or strangers will say, how cold is it in there? As if the water changes over time with air temperature. And it doesn't. Water freezes. So the water is at consistent 34 degrees. But the danger, as we know, is getting out in 0-degree weather and a -10 wind chill. You've got wet skin. If you don't dry off with a towel right away, put on your dry robe or whatever garment you might have. Make sure you got your mittens on. You don't spend a lot of time after dipping messing around because you got to get to your car. That exposed skin is a real concern. So safety is probably priority number one. But yes, big difference between air temperature of 34 and air temperature of 4,
Well,
for
I
sure.
know the first couple of times, well, the first year, maybe the first 2 years, I would always have this paranoia of forgetting something. And I had a list like, okay, I have to have my towel, my
Right.
neoprene booties, my socks, a second towel. And I, do you still have that feeling
Well,
like you're forgetting
I don't have a
something?
punch. Yeah, I don't have a punch list, but my car is full of things that would not normally be in my car. Most people don't carry a sledgehammer in the back of their car. Just saying, most people don't have a pitchfork in the back of their car or a cauldron to kind of scoop out the ice. I have extra towel in my car. I have a broom to swipe off the sand off my feet. Uh, I have slippers. I have extra pair of socks. So it's crazy what is in my car. It's kind of like an odd inventory that only seems to happen from like Christmas to April, and then my car gets cleaned out and all the sand gets removed. But yes, there are things you want to make sure you have, even like a face mask when the wind chill is really cold. Make sure you have a good stocking cap to wear, that you have more than one pair of gloves or mittens to wear, neoprene boots, those ice grabbers that you put on the bottom of your neoprene boots to grab on ice. So There's all kinds of things that people bring. Some are much more organized than others. There's a guy named Ricky Lake who goes out on the lake, and he has a IKEA bag, and in that bag is everything he needs, and he changes in that bag. And I mean, it's like a changing room. It's just a big IKEA bag, but that's his whole universe is in that bag.
I've seen him. I've seen him getting out of the lake. He steps into the bag and he changes.
Right?
So, and
Funny.
that's what's nice about the dry robes too, because we can change, we can take off our wet clothes and get rid of the excess water, because that water, when it gets below zero, it will freeze to your skin.
It'll freeze your hair. It'll put, icicles on your arm. It's quite
Yeah.
amazing.
And I've even had my swimsuit freeze to the ice.
Right.
Like, oh no, how do I rip this off of the ice so that I can take it home with me instead of having it permanently in the ice?
And to the casual listener, this sounds like a very extreme behavior, and I understand that. This is not. I mean, most Minnesotans say, "Why do I live in a place where the wind hurts my face or the air temperature hurts my face?" Well, there's the other joke that says there's no bad weather, just bad clothing. So if you prepare for cold water dipping with the right equipment and the right clothing, it can be much more enjoyable. But you're going to get cold. That's why we do this. We want our bodies to have that cold experience, that discomfort of being close, not on, but close to what's the word I'm looking for? When you get, I'm having a mind melt here. When you're in the water too long, what's that called, Lisa?
Oh, well, I know
Hypothermia.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hypothermia.
that's what, yeah,
Yeah,
people are
that's the
always
word.
afraid.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
basically says you've been in the water too long and your core body is no longer able to warm itself. So physiologically, as most people would know, once you get cold, all the blood leaves your extremities, your fingers, your toes, and goes to your core organs to keep them, alive. The blood flow tends to go there. So you lose some feeling in your fingers and toes. That's why we wear neoprene boots to keep the blood flow in our feet and so they don't become numb. But what Minnesota has never had that experience where they were out too long shoveling or ice skating or skiing, and they felt like they got frostbite or they felt like they were out too long. We want to avoid that in what we do, but we want to get to that point where it's okay to shiver. Shivering is actually a good um, symptom or behavior to have because it means your body is reacting to this constant flow of cold and warm blood throughout your body. And it actually has great metabolic value in terms of your ability to process energy, and it also heats up your mitochondria become more active. So there's lots of value in getting shivering. So people tend, well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to shiver. Well, you kind of want to get to that shivering point. There's health value there.
So as you're going into the water, so right now we have an ice hole. We have carved a spot in the water so that we can go down this ladder that's in the water and stand in the water.
It's
And
about 4 by
so,
4. The hole is not really big. We've had bigger holes in past years, but
mhm.
it's about a 4 by 4 or 5 by 5 foot hole.
And what is your first reaction as you walk down that ladder? If you can
Oh,
just take a moment and picture yourself doing it.
every time. This is the beauty of 600 visits. You think, well, your body becomes immune to this. I think my body does go, oh, we're doing this again. So, I mean, you think there's a certain element of like, oh, I'm remember this. This is familiar. But that first, when you take your dry robe off and you're in your swimsuit and your mittens and your hat, and the wind is blowing, it's 20 degrees, and then you're going to go climb in water. There's always that, oh boy, am I really going to do this? There's always just that little seed of doubt, which again shows up in so many other facets of our life, right? Whether it's you're running a 10K and you're at the start line, you go, oh boy, here we go. So that initial crossing over, that leap of faith is always there. But I think my reaction or my ability to not get have a problem with it is usually within 5 seconds. So I get in the water, I take a couple of deep breaths, and then I relax my shoulders, and I'm fine. So I don't hyperventilate. Like you've seen some people. We were with a couple this week, and they for the first time out in Wisconsin, and they cut a hole in the lake, And there's a first time dipper. So we guided them in, but their eyes were like saucers. And they were like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And it's like, well, first relax your shoulders, take some deep breaths, relax, just let it be rather than fight it or feel that fight and flight things are real thing. We've all experienced fight and flight. So rather than fight it or run, relax and then let your body adjust. So I still always have that first 3 to 5 seconds where, oh, wow, that's cold.
Yeah.
I actually look forward to it though. That's part of the juice too.
I love this conversation because it is nice to hear someone else's perspective on it. Because, like, even this morning, like, I got in and I'm like, oh, this is so cold. This is so cold. And that was the message I kept telling myself. And when you just said, oh, yeah, I've been here before, I've done this before, that's a better conversation to have in my mind than this is terrible. This is cold. This is cold. And I think, as whether you work for yourself or you're working for a company, mindset is so important because it is everything about what you tell yourself. I hate it
Mhm.
here. I love what I do. We have
This is hard.
choices.
This is going to be hard versus
Yeah.
I can do hard things. And those are two
Yeah.
very different points of view.
So that very first minute, when do you get that jolt of dopamine
Oh,
from cold water dipping?
I get the minute I get out. So while I'm in it, I'm in my experience of cold and breathing. I tend to do my Wim Hof breathing in the water if I'm alone. And again, I try and go with people. We have conversations and then time goes by quickly. But the minute I get out of that water, I'm wet and I've been in there for 10 minutes. That's when I towel off, put on my dry robe. My skin feels like it's electric. I feel like it's been charged with, like I've been plugged into a EV charger because all of a sudden I've got more energy than I've had before I went in the water. And it stays with me through the next 3 hours. I go home and I take a shower and I warm up with a little space heater and I grab a warm cup of coffee and sometimes I'll wear a cap to kind of warm up. So there is that recovery window after dipping of 30 minutes or so, but I love it. And oh, I'm so hungry. I don't know if you've had that experience, but sometimes I'm just craving carbs after being in the water, and I think that has it's just something to do with the mitochondria being kicked in and my metabolism being jacked up by being in the cold water. All of a sudden, it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, I could eat right now, just about anything.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
So I gotta
I
be
get it.
careful. That's a dangerous thing. Come out
I
of the
get it.
dipping and go to the refrigerator. I'm thinking about an author that comes to mind. Her name is a local person named Sindra Kamphoff, and Sindra has a book called Grit, and she is a performance coach. She was a marathon runner herself, but she worked with Adam Thielen, the ex-Minnesota Viking receiver who now is at North Carolina. But she has a whole coaching thing around how to build a more grit mindset. And I think going into the water is a good example of grit. I mean, it's not for the timid. You have to get uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, but you also there are some tools and techniques that can help you get through those difficult moments, whether it's ice water or a new boss, a new job, a new relationship, your children, your coworkers, whatever that might be. So I'm a big fan of Sindra, and I have heard her speak a number of times. But there are other people
Ah,
like that too. But she has a book called Grit, Kamphoff,
okay.
Kamphoff.
So anything that you've referenced today, I will include in the show notes so that listeners can easily access those. So that would be
Cool.
great. Get that from you after our time together. So I do love the conversation about building resilience. And what have you seen as some of the longer term effects of being an ice dipper these last few years? What has changed for you?
That's a great question, Lisa. I'm not sure how much has changed. There's some noticings. I tend to find that, again, my energy is much better during the cold dipping season. I tend not to get colds as often. Now, have had got some chest congested problem back in December that seems to linger, but generally my health is pretty good. I historically sleep really well when I ice dip, although getting older now and finding uninterrupted sleep is getting more challenging. That could be more of a factor of age and other things, but I don't relate it to ice dipping. But in general, I find that my mental attitude is much better. I know this time of year people experience seasonal affective disorder, so I think just being outdoors for 30 minutes every day. I have a dog as well, so I get out and walk my her dog. But being outdoors, even in the winter, is really important. We need that vitamin D on our skin, that sunlight. Um, so many people work in offices that are under artificial lighting, and if you can find a way to get out and be in the environment, like you mentioned, it's good for your mental health. It's good for your physical health. The other thing is my weight has been pretty stable. I find that I don't tend to eat as much because I'm more active, and so I find that
Mhm.
my weight has stabilized pretty much. Yeah, those are the main things.
And talking about weight, what do you know about well, stop it. What do you know about brown fat versus
Yes.
white fat? There's a lot of talk about brown fat for that it increases because of the cold water dipping.
Well, that's what the researchers are trying to find out. So last year, we joined a study, a number of people from the Harriet Magic Hole, where we actually went and had some blood work done at the University of Minnesota to be part of a longitudinal study. They wanted to measure the impact, if any, of cold water dipping in the production of brown fat in adult men and women. So they had a control group that said, you're not participating, and let's see what your brown fat levels look like by that same season versus those that dip. And the guidelines were you had to dip at least 3 times a week and go at least 3 minutes at a time. So they tried to put some controls to make the study reliable and credible and valid. I don't know what the end results were because I think it was part of a larger study. This was going to be like a pilot where they would go out and get more funding for it. But there's been a number of people that talk about brown fat production in the human body. It tends to diminish as we get older. It's more often found in infants in the upper back area. But as we get older, brown fat tends to be displaced by white fat. And white fat obviously is what most people experience. But brown fat has been shown to increase production of mitochondria. Mitochondria is also the metabolic engine, if you will, for our, meta, our metabolic engine that for production of food and consumption of food and helps with weight control. Um, and then there's some question about its ability to impact cardiovascular issues. So brown fat and mitochondria help with cardiovascular health, but it's so far limited studies. I'm not a physician or tied to the medical field, so I'm reading what other people are doing in terms of research. Even if it proves to be nominal, I'm going to keep dipping regardless of the brown fat story. But there
I
is,
think
again, there's evidence that brown fat does have health value in
Mhm.
adults, and we just don't know to what extent cold water dipping contributes to the production and or sustainability of brown fat.
Well, right. And people tend to spend so much more time thinking about the misconceptions, like you're going to have a heart attack or you're going to go into shock or hypothermia, like you said. And if
Well,
we would just spend,
we both know people that go, I wouldn't put my toe in that ice water, right? I mean, I have no interest in that, and I'm okay with that. That people have that opinion, but then I do ask, well, what is your threshold for discomfort? So we live in very controlled environments between air conditioning in Arizona and maybe out in California, windows closed because of the fire smoke. And so we're living in very controlled environments. And you live in Texas in August, you're going from one air conditioned building to another air conditioned building. And here in the Midwest, you can go to University of Minnesota in Duluth and never leave campus and never leave the building. It's all traveling through caves and skyways and walkways. So we've gotten to be very environmentally very narrow in our zone. So I think there's value in, and not just me personally, but I think there's research that shows um, humans have the capacity to have really wide ranges for hot and cold. And I take that even beyond that to say people have capacity for being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And most, if you look at athletic performance or performance of any nature, most of these individuals have found a way to go beyond what is considered the normal level of performance by by stretching their possibilities. And I think cold water submersion is one of those areas that you let your body respond, and it will, to cold water. And we can be very adaptive. We worked for centuries before we, went into indoor plumbing and coal heating, and we sat by fires at night, and we were very accustomed to having our skin exposed to the elements.
Oh, yeah. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned from cold water dipping is just to be more adaptable and be more open to trying new things. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Steve. The one thing too, the other thing is I have this new respect for Lady Harriet because a lot of times people are afraid of the water and there really is the lake itself does have its own personality.
It does, as does Cedar, as does Nokomis,
Y-
every lake does, right? But I think you're right that Lake Harriet, it's special to people that go there, right? I mean, it gets a lot of foot traffic walking around. You see a lot of gawkers, if you will, wondering what's going on in
Mm.
that fenced-in little hole in the North Beach of Lake Harriet. Um, it's a community, yes. It's an invitation too. I mean, we have the art shanties coming up in a couple of weeks, and the lake will be heavily populated with maybe first-time visitors or repeat visitors to art shanty. But there will be people that'll be curious. They'll see our little red flag waving in the wind of Harriet Magic Hole, and they'll come over and say, "What's going on over here?" And so I think it's an invitation more than anything else. That ice hole is saying, "Come play with us. Come play with me. Come play with the lake."
And isn't that what life is all about? It's just an invitation. Uh, I
It's right
think,
there in our backyard, so you can walk by it and
yeah.
miss it every day. So it's not that you have to go looking for it. Sometimes it's right in
Yeah,
front of us.
yeah. Well, thank you, Steve. Any closing words of wisdom that you would love to share?
Boy, I don't get a chance to share wisdom that much. I just think, for your listeners, not walking in your shoes. I think there's unique challenges to moms that are also business women that also want to run their own life, right? Manage their own business through their choices. So I honor that. I think grew up in a single parent family, so I know it's challenging sometimes for moms to create space to do what they want to do with other demands. So I just want to acknowledge your audience to say, um, keep fighting the good fight, and use the resources that Lisa shares with you on her podcast, and come join us at Lake Harriet. We'd love to have you experience this ice hole with us.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. And I will be sure to include any links that you have on your new program that you're creating.
Yeah, be happy to share that as well as some other resources that might be relevant for your audience.
Well, even so, I think everyone, in every season of life, there are new challenges. So it's always good to have all the resources from someone that we know and that we like and that we can trust.
True, true, true. This has been so fun. Thank you for making time for this. And next time I'll have my dry roll bottle, I
Okay.
promise.
You may not realize this, but this was a truly beautiful conversation to me. I love the cold water dipping. I love everything that goes along with it. One of the first times that I dipped, someone was walking out of the cold water and said, "This just helps my ADHD so much." There are a lot of amazing benefits to the cold water dipping. And on this podcast, I'll be sharing more from other cold water dippers because it is something that I am passionate about and I love everything that goes along with it. So, Steve is an amazing human being and is such a great part of our community. I hope this conversation gave you a little taste of why I love it so much. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Time for You Evolve for Female Entrepreneurs. If you loved this episode as much as I did, head on over and rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. New episodes drop every week, and if you want to support the show, leaving a review goes a long way. A special shout out to our amazing partners and sponsors. Their support allows us to continue bringing you engaging content every week. And with a big thank you, I look forward to seeing you next time. If you're ready to supercharge your email marketing and automation game, look no further than my favorite autoresponder, ActiveCampaign. It's the ultimate all-in-one platform designed to turn your contacts into customers and your customers into loyal advocates. Imagine having a tool that not only understands your customers, but anticipates their needs. That's what ActiveCampaign does. With its powerful customer experience automation, you can create personalized journeys that nurture leads, drive sales, and build lasting relationships. The biggest reason I chose ActiveCampaign after trying other autoresponders is because I wanted to make sure my emails were being delivered and not going into spam. I need to know that my emails actually get to the people I'm emailing so that I have good engagement rates, response rates, and click-through rates on every email I send. Then I can have peace of mind that what I send out about my blog posts or upcoming events gets delivered and that people get to read what I write. ActiveCampaign offers live support through chats, webinars, and in-person study halls, again, which is so different from those other email services I've tried in the past. If you're ready to up your marketing game, go to my website, lisarcarmichael.com/activecampaign, which is my partner link, and sign up for a free trial. Experience firsthand the power of ActiveCampaign and take your marketing to a new level. Hi, friends. Let's have a heart to heart about something that's been a significant part of my life, skincare. As a busy female entrepreneur, I need a quick and effective routine. About a year or so ago, I stumbled across my secret weapon, Droplet. It's made a remarkable difference in my skin. Now, I'm a self-proclaimed skincare junkie. I've tried it all, from serums to spa treatments, and even once selling a natural body care line. So when I learned about Droplet, I knew I had to give it a shot. Droplet delivers personalized skincare with its micro infuser, penetrating ingredients deep into your skin. It's like a Nespresso for skincare. It's quick, easy, with capsules that are recyclable. No cleanup, no hassle. Droplet's formulas are clinical strength, dermatologist recommended, and are cruelty free. It's a skincare lover's dream. If you're ready to evolve beyond the basics, head over to the Droplet link on my website today where you can start your own personalized Droplet routine. Investing in a good skincare routine is crucial for any woman, especially us busy entrepreneurs. First impressions matter, and you want to put your best face forward. Droplet offers free consultations with their estheticians to address your skin concerns. Here's to glowing, radiant, and fiercely beautiful you, no matter what age you are. Get your 20% savings by heading over to my website, lisarcarmichael.com/droplet.